Message from the Mayor. Air pollution in our city is a public health crisis. It's making Londoners sick, causing children to grow up with stunted lungs and leading to thousands of people dying prematurely every year. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, tackling toxic air was already one of my top priorities. But now that we know exposure to air pollution could make the effects of this virus worse, I'm even more determined to tackle it. I believe that every Londoner, young and old, should have the right to breathe clean air. That's why we're pushing ahead with world-leading plans to make that aspiration a reality. In 2019, we introduced the world's first 24-hour ultra-low emission zone, ULEZ, in central London. The ULEZ has already delivered significant improvements, helping to reduce quickly the levels of some harmful pollutants by almost half within central London and improving the air breathed by millions of Londoners. But air pollution is not just a central London problem. It affects the whole of our city, with many areas exceeding legal pollution limits. That's why, on the 25th of October 2021, we expanded the ULEZ to cover all areas within the North and South Circular Roads to help clean up our toxic air and tackle the climate emergency. This much larger zone will help improve air quality for millions of Londoners both inside and outside the zone. I'm pleased that so many Londoners have already taken early action to prepare, so that from its start 87% of vehicles travelling in the expanded zone meet the ULEZ emission standards. Only a relatively small number of older, more polluting vehicles are subject to the daily charge when driven in the zone. As Mayor, I have not taken this action lightly. I am convinced that it is necessary to protect the health of Londoners and the life chances of our children. It is also a crucial step toward addressing inequalities in our city, with the poorest Londoners and Londoners from ethnic minority backgrounds worst affected by toxic air, despite being less likely to own a car. And in tackling air pollution, we are also helping to tackle the climate crisis and put London on the path to being a net zero carbon city by 2030. The ULEZ expansion is the bold action we need to help deliver a greener city, cleaner air and a healthier environment for our children. The ultra-low emission zone, ULEZ, now covers all areas within the North and South Circular Roads to help clean up London's air. Introduction. This guide gives an overview of the ultra-low emission zone, ULEZ, which expanded on the 25th of October 2021 to create a single, larger zone bounded by the North Circular Road, A406, and South Circular Road, A205. The North and South Circular Roads themselves are not included in the zone. It contains key information you need to know about how the ULEZ works, how it may affect you if you drive within the new boundary, and what your options are. Cars, motorcycles, vans and other specialist vehicles, up to and including 3.5 tons, and minibuses, up to and including 5 tons, will need to meet the required ULEZ emission standards when driving within and into the expanded zone or pay a daily charge of £12.50. 92% of vehicles travelling within the zone already meet the ULEZ emission standards, but we need owners of the remaining older polluting cars, motorcycles, lighter vans and minibuses to take action. Operates every day of the year including bank holidays, e.g. Christmas Day. Operates 24 hours a day, from midnight to midnight. The ultra-low emission zone expanded on the 25th of October 2021. About the ultra-low emission zone. The ultra-low emission zone, ULEZ, expanded on the 25th of October 2021 to help clean up London's air. It covers all areas within the North and South Circular Roads. The ULEZ operates 24 hours a day, every day of the year except Christmas Day. Cars, motorcycles, vans and other specialist vehicles, up to and including 3.5 tons, and minibuses, up to and including 5 tons, will need to meet the required ULEZ emission standards when driving within and into the expanded zone or pay a daily charge. Why was it introduced? Traffic emissions are the biggest source of air pollution in London. The world's first 24-hour ultra-low emission zone, ULEZ, was introduced in central London in April 2019. It had a transformational impact on air pollution, contributing to a 44% reduction in roadside nitrogen dioxide within its boundaries. The zone was expanded in October 2021 to cover all areas within the North and South Circular Roads to help improve air quality for Londoners. Many Londoners have already taken action, with 92% of vehicles travelling in the zone already meeting ULEZ standards, up from 39% in February 2017 when plans for expansion were first announced. Why did we expand the ULEZ area? Despite recent improvements in air quality, toxic air pollution in London remains the biggest environmental risk to the health of all Londoners. It harms our lungs, worsens chronic illnesses such as asthma, lung and heart disease, and puts the health of our children at risk. Furthermore, emerging evidence has linked air pollution with an increased vulnerability to the most severe health impacts of coronavirus. Air pollution is not just a central London problem, with many areas across the city still exceeding the legal limits pollution. Pollution levels are now returning to pre-pandemic levels across the capital. We need to encourage owners of these remaining older polluting vehicles to take action and either switch to walking, cycling or public transport where possible, or use cleaner vehicles for essential journeys. Although the primary aim of expanding the ULEZ is to help tackle the key air pollutants including nitrogen dioxide, it will also help to reduce carbon dioxide to help tackle the climate change emergency. Londoners are already doing their bit, with 92% of vehicles travelling within the zone already meeting the ULEZ emission standards, but we need owners of the remaining older polluting cars, motorcycles, lighter vans and minibuses to take action. This action is crucial because every Londoner, young and old, should have the right to breathe clean air. Where does the expanded ULEZ operate? The ULEZ has expanded from central London to cover all areas within the North and South Circular Roads. The North and South Circular Roads themselves are not included in the zone. When does it operate? The ULEZ operates 24 hours a day, every day of the year, including weekends and public and bank holidays, except Christmas Day. Charging days for ULEZ run from midnight to midnight. This is different to the Central London Congestion Charge Zone, which now operates Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturdays, Sundays and bank holidays, noon 6 p.m. How will I know where the ULEZ operates? The area covered by the ULEZ is clearly signposted. Road signs are in place at entry points along the boundary and along key arterial approaches. There is also advance information signage outside the zone as well as reminder road signs within the zone. How does it operate? The ULEZ has no barriers or toll booths. Instead, cameras read your number plate as you drive within the zone and check it against our database of UK registered and non-UK registered vehicles. This tells us whether your vehicle meets the ULEZ emission standards, is exempt, is registered for a discount, or if you have already paid the daily charge. If you are parked but don't drive, you don't need to pay the ULEZ charge. However, even if you make a short trip using a vehicle that doesn't meet the ULEZ standards, you need to pay the daily change. Who is affected and what are the ULEZ emission standards? Cars, motorcycles, vans and other specialist vehicles, up to and including 3.5 tons, and minibuses, up to and including 5 tons, whether petrol or diesel, will need to meet the required ULEZ emission standards when driving within and into the expanded zone or pay a daily charge. Depending on your vehicle type, there are different Euro emission standards your vehicle must meet for ULEZ. Both petrol and diesel vehicles may be affected. Euro standards are a range of emissions controls that set limits for vehicle exhaust emissions such as nitrogen oxides, NOx, and particulate matter, PM. This is important because these two pollutants can enter the lungs and cause health problems. The ULEZ standards. Euro 3, NOx, for motorcycles, mopeds, motorized tricycles and quadricycles. Euro 4, NOx, for petrol cars, vans and other specialist vehicles, up to and including 3.5 tons gross vehicle weight. GVW, and minibuses, up to and including 5 tons GVW. Euro 6, NOx and PM, for diesel cars, vans and other specialist vehicles, up to and including 3.5 tons, and minibuses, up to and including 5 tons GVW. HGVs, vans and specialist heavy vehicles over 3.5 tons GVW, as well as buses, coaches and minibuses over 5 tons GVW are subject to London-wide low-emission zone standards. These heavy diesel vehicles need to meet Euro 5, NOx and PM, emission standards if driving within the ULEZ. Visit tfl.gov.uk/ULEZ for more information. For journeys where it is essential to drive, we would prefer you to use a vehicle that meets the ULEZ emission standards, rather than pay the daily charge. What are my options? To help improve air quality in London, walk or cycle whenever possible or use public transport. We would prefer you to use a vehicle that meets the ULEZ emission standards for essential journeys, rather than pay the daily charge. How about walking or cycling? we're delivering safer streets for walking and cycling, to support local journeys and create places that people want to spend time. Safer streets for walking, cycling and scooting will encourage people to start enjoying their city again, improve mental and physical health, help improve air quality and congestion. To find out about improvements in your area, search TfL Walking and Cycling. You could hire a bike with Santander Cycles. It costs from just £2 per day, with all 30-minute journeys included. If you ride for longer than 30 minutes, you pay £2 for each additional 30 minutes. Find out more, search TfL Santander Cycles. Off-peak fares apply on weekdays before 6:30, between 9:30 and 15:59, and after 1900, plus all day at weekends and bank holidays. Fare shown is for an adult off-peak pay-as-you-go journey not going via Zone 1 on Tube, DLR and most London Overground services. Using public transport, travel for less off-peak * anywhere between Zones 2 and 6 for £1.90 * and use our hopper fare to make unlimited bus or tram journeys within 1 hour for £1.65. This includes our night bus. Touch in using the same card or device on all journeys and you get our hopper fare automatically. We regularly clean our services using hospital-grade antiviral disinfectant. We strongly recommend you continue to wear a face covering on all TfL services and stations, unless you are exempt. This will help everyone travel safely and with confidence. For more information, search TfL face coverings. Download TfL Go, our real-time travel app, to find the quieter time to travel. Search for the app in the Apple App Store or Google Play. Other options. If you are buying a second-hand vehicle, remember to check its emissions by entering the vehicle registration number on the TfL website. Visit tfl.gov.uk/check-your-vehicle. If you need to drive infrequently for essential trips, using a car club instead of a private car may be more affordable. Car club vehicles in London meet the ULEZ emission standards. For more information, search TfL car clubs. Before you buy a new car or van, use the Cleaner Vehicle Checker to help you make an informed choice. The checker lists cars and vans that meet the ULEZ standards, as well as the nitrogen oxides, NOx, pollution they emit in real-world driving conditions. Search Cleaner Vehicle Checker. Leasing a vehicle may be a more affordable way to get a vehicle that meets the emission standards. Consider going electric. We are working with partners to develop a network of rapid charging points in London to help you charge your vehicle quickly and efficiently. For information about getting an electric vehicle, including a list of eligible vehicles for a government grant. Who is eligible for a discount or exemption? Some drivers and vehicles will qualify for a temporary or permanent discount or exemption from the ULEZ. 100% discounts and exemptions are limited to the following vehicle types: military vehicles, showman's vehicles, vehicles not constructed or adapted for general use on the roads, e.g. mobile cranes, historic tax class vehicles or vehicles constructed prior to 1 January 1973. London licensed taxis, as they are subject to meeting separate emission standards. A temporary grace period is applicable to some vehicle types, during which they will receive a 100% discount or exemption from the ULEZ emission standards and daily charge. This is for the following: vehicles for disabled people. Vehicles registered with a disabled or disabled passenger vehicle tax class will benefit from a time-limited exemption from the ULEZ until the 26th of October 2025. If your UK registered vehicle is in this category, you do not need to register with us to receive the exemption. Vehicles used by blue badge holders that do not have a disabled or disabled passenger vehicles tax class are not eligible for the exemption. Residents living within the ULEZ. From the 25th of October 2021, all residents wishing to use a vehicle in the zone that doesn't meet the ULEZ emission standards will need to pay the daily ULEZ charge of £12.50. If a vehicle that doesn't meet the emission standards is parked and not driven, there is no requirement to pay the daily charge. There is no residence discount. Not-for-profit minibuses. Minibuses run by not-for-profit organisations are eligible for a time-limited 100% discount from the ULEZ until 29 October 2023. If your vehicle is in this category, you will need to apply to TfL with evidence of your eligibility in order to receive the discount. 14. Wheelchair-accessible private hire vehicles. Private hire vehicles, PHVs, converted to be wheelchair-accessible, and licensed by TfL, are exempt from the ULEZ. Until the 26th of October 2025. NHS patients. NHS patients who are clinically assessed as too ill, weak or disabled to travel to an appointment on public transport may be eligible for a reimbursement of the congestion charge or the ULEZ daily charge for their journeys to and from treatment. The NHS trust that is treating the patient is responsible for both assessing the eligibility of the patient and administering the reimbursement, and will normally discuss this when planning the treatment or arranging appointments. To be eligible for reimbursement, the patient must be being treated, or be having treatment funded, by the NHS. They must have a compromised immune system, or require regular therapy or assessment, or recurrent surgical intervention, and they must be clinically assessed as too ill, weak or disabled to travel to an appointment on public transport. Patients who are clinically assessed as being at high or moderate risk from COVID-19 may also be eligible. If the patient, or the person paying the ULEZ charge, believes that they are eligible but is not currently receiving a reimbursement, they should check with their hospital, treatment center or NHS trust. The reimbursement applies to the person who paid the ULEZ charge for the vehicle that transported the patient to the hospital, which may be a friend, relative or carer rather than the patient themselves. What is the cost of the daily charge and how do I pay? For journeys where it is essential to drive, we would prefer you to use a vehicle that meets the ULEZ emission standards, rather than pay the daily charge. If your vehicle does not meet the ULEZ standards and you drive within the ULEZ across 2 days, for example before midnight and after midnight, you would need to pay 2 daily charges. Vehicles that don't meet the ULEZ standards but remain parked in the zone throughout the day and are not driven are not required to pay the charge for that day. However, if you need to drive a polluting vehicle, please see details about the daily charge below. What is the daily charge? If your car, motorcycle, van and other specialist vehicle, up to and including 3.5 tons, or minibus, up to and including 5 tons, do not meet the ULEZ standards and you are traveling within the zone, you will need to pay the £12.50 daily ULEZ charge. Drivers can pay in advance or on the day of travel. If you forget to pay the charge, you have up to midnight 3 charging days after you have traveled to pay the charge and avoid a fine. For example, if you drove on Saturday, you have until midnight on Tuesday to pay, and if you drove on Sunday, you have until midnight on Wednesday. This is in addition to the daily congestion charge if you are also travelling in the central London congestion charge zone. HGVs, vans and specialist heavy vehicles over 3.5 tons. GVW, as well as buses, coaches and minibuses over 5 tons. GVW are subject to the low emission zone standards and are subject to the appropriate ULEZ charge. These heavy diesel vehicles are required to meet Euro V1 emission standards, the same requirement as the ultra-low emission zone. Heavy diesel vehicles that do not meet the Euro V standard and wish to continue driving within Greater London, including Central London, won't have to pay an additional ULEZ daily charge as the Euro V standard is a London-wide low emission zone requirement. If driving within Central London, these vehicles will be required to pay the congestion charge, if driving within the congestion charge zone. How to pay? Register for autopay. Autopay is the most convenient way to pay. When you register for autopay and add vehicles details to your autopay service, we will automatically check whether your vehicle needs to pay the ULEZ charge. Using autopay means we will automatically record the number of charging days a vehicle travels within the ULEZ each month and bill your registered credit or debit card each month. This means you will never forget to pay the charge or risk a fine. You can register up to 5 vehicles on autopay, or 6 or more for fleet autopay account holders. There is a £10 annual administration charge for each vehicle added to autopay, which must be paid each year. Pay online. Use the TfL website to pay the ULEZ charge or to register for autopay by visiting tfl.gov.uk/pay-to-drive. Pay by mobile phone. Download the official TfL Pay to Drive app, available free from the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. You can also register for autopay via the app. Register for fleet autopay. Businesses with 6 or more vehicles can apply for our automated payment system, Fleet Autopay. We will automatically charge the account by billing monthly for the number of days each vehicle travels within the ULEZ charging zone. You can add an unlimited number of vehicles and up to 5 account users to help you manage the service. There is a £10 annual administration charge for each vehicle added to Fleet Autopay, which must be paid each year. Search Pay ULEZ on the TfL website for all payment options. If your vehicle is already active on an auto pay or fleet auto pay service, and it doesn't meet the ULEZ standards, you will automatically be charged the ULEZ daily charge. What happens if I fail to pay the daily charge? If you drive a vehicle that doesn't meet the ULEZ standards within the zone and the daily charge is not paid, a penalty charge notice, PCN, will be issued to the registered keeper. This penalty is in addition to any congestion charge or low emission zone penalties that may be issued. The ULEZ penalty charge for cars, motorcycles, vans and minibuses is £160, reduced to £80 if paid within 14 days. Low emission zone penalty charges will apply to HGVs, buses, coaches and other specialist vehicles over 3.5 tons, as well as larger vans and minibuses that do not meet the low emission zone standards.